On February 9, 2019, two Italian tourists, Carlo Basso and Carlo Barbieri, entered El Dudu Lagoon cave system. Neither was certified for cave diving. Neither had the proper gear. They were using standard open-water scuba equipment, not side mounts. They were not trained to manage jumps, line markers, or emergency scenarios in overhead environments. The surface of El Dudu Lagoon in the Dominican Republic is beautiful. Sunlight dances across its turquoise water. Visitors come here to swim, dive, and marvel at the natural beauty of a seemingly peaceful cenote. But beneath that calm surface, the ground gives way to something far older, far more dangerous. A sprawling underwater cave system with silty tunnels, tight restrictions, and maze-like passages that stretch deep into the earth. The entrance is a vertical shaft that drops into a large cavern zone, a deceptively open space where sunlight still reaches. From there, the cave branches in several directions. One of the main routes is lined with a permanent guideline, laid by certified cave divers. That line leads through winding tunnels and eventually forks at a T intersection, a critical navigation point. To the left, a side passage chokes into a narrow, silty restriction, only suitable for highly trained cave divers using side mount gear. To the right, the line loops back toward the entrance, completing a circuit that connects to the main line once again. Cave divers call these junctions jumps. They are intentionally left disconnected to avoid accidental navigation by divers who aren't prepared. A temporary connection, a jump reel, is required to traverse from the main line to a secondary passage. Proper cave training teaches divers how to use these connections, how to mark exits, and how to turn around long before danger sets in. At approximately 11:50 a.m., Carlo Basso and Carlo Barbieri slipped beneath the surface and began their descent into El Dudu. Hours passed. They never came back. By mid-afternoon, concern turned to alarm. The Dominican Republic Speleological Society was notified, and cave diver Philip Lehman responded alongside Angel Compress. They entered the cave with almost no information, no idea what route the Italians had taken, no dive plan to follow. What they found was silence and silt, heavy clouds of it suspended in the water, fresh, disturbed, unnatural. That silt was their only guide. They followed the trail deeper, inch by inch, into worsening visibility. Then they saw it, a broken guideline, leading off into a tight side passage. It was hanging loose in the water, leading into blackness. It was clear now. Basso and Barbieri had followed a jump line. Whether it had been left behind by another diver or placed by them, no one knows. But they took it, and they took it in the wrong direction. They reached the T intersection. Had they turned right, they would have rejoined the main line and reached the exit. They turned left. That left passage chokes down into a narrow, silty, winding corridor, a space only safely navigable by side mount divers who are trained to manage entanglements and line discipline in zero visibility. It is not meant for back-mounted tanks or open water gear. But the Italians pressed forward. As they advanced, Basso's front-mounted stage cylinder became entangled in the cave line. He kept moving. The line tore free and followed him, dragging behind as he led Barbieri deeper into a passage with no anchor and no way back. When they finally reached the end, a terminal chamber, they realized their mistake. They were in a dead end. Visibility was gone. The line behind them no longer led out. There was no reference, no light, no exit. Panic doesn't have to be violent to be fatal. It can happen slowly, in the form of elevated breathing, lost time, poor decisions. They had no way to communicate in the darkness. Their regulators hissed faster. Every breath reduced their margin of survival. Carlo Basso, in the narrowest part of the tunnel, tried to switch to his stage regulator, but it was wedged between his body and the cave wall. He couldn't reach it. His back-mounted cylinder was already empty. The only air left was inches from his face, trapped under his own equipment. He suffocated with a full tank strapped to his chest. Carlo Barbieri was further behind. The passage was too tight, and with no line to guide him, he was lost in the silt. He may have followed Basso's bubbles, or simply followed hope. He became lodged in a restriction, unable to turn or back out. His body was stuck so tightly that even recovery divers would need multiple attempts just to free him. By the time search teams arrived, the cave had erased its trail. On February 12th, 3 days after the dive, Barbieri's body was located. His position made recovery nearly impossible. Visibility was still zero, and the passage was tight enough that even side-mount divers struggled to fit. For 9 days, attempts were made. All failed. The Dominican team finally halted their efforts. The cave had claimed them. Attempting another recovery could kill someone else. But the story wasn't over. 2 American experts, Ed Sorensen and Mike Young, offered their help. Sorensen was a veteran of dozens of cave recoveries. Young, a skilled technical diver and equipment specialist. Both were used to tight passage and zero visibility operations. At first, the Dominican government hesitated. If locals couldn't retrieve the bodies, what made them think foreigners could? Eventually, permission was granted, but with a time limit. They had 8 days. On their first dive, Sorensen reached Barbieri. He used a custom harness he'd built for body recoveries, while Young managed the line and cleared the path. It took 4 hours to extract him from the rock. The next day, they went deeper. Sorensen swam past Barbieri's former position. Blind in the silt, he felt the walls narrow. Then, ahead, soft resistance, basso, face down, arms limp, regulator still clenched. His back-mounted tank was floating, empty. Sorensen cut it free. His stage tank was still full, but unreachable, entangled in the same massive guideline he'd dragged with him. Young held the line, one hand on the reel, one on Sorensen. Any mistake in those conditions, and they would be recovering each other. They cut Basso loose, pulled him back, and after 4 hours, the second body surfaced. The tragedy of El Dudu wasn't just in the deaths, it was in how preventable they were. Basso and Barbieri weren't reckless thrill seekers. They were divers, but they were not cave divers. They entered a system that required advanced training, specialized gear, and a respect for the complexity of navigation underground. They made small errors, misjudged a junction, followed the wrong path, and the cave gave them no second chance. They turned the wrong way, brought the line with them, suffocated with air still in their tanks. The recovery of both divers brought closure, but not peace. For days, the cave had held their bodies in silence. It had swallowed the evidence of their final moments, leaving behind only fragments. A broken line, a misplaced jump, a regulator just out of reach. For the divers who recovered them, this was more than technical work. It was personal. Ed Sorensen would later describe the dives as some of the most challenging and emotionally taxing of his career. Not because of the depth or the conditions, but because of how close the deaths had been to being avoidable. The mistakes weren't dramatic, they were subtle. But in cave diving, subtle mistakes are deadly. In the aftermath, cave diving instructors and communities around the world pointed to this case as a cautionary tale. Not to shame the dead, but to teach the living. That overhead environments are not extensions of the ocean or the open sea. They are closed, silent, and absolute. Without training, without the right equipment, and without a line to follow, a diver's chances collapse the moment something goes wrong. Carlo Basso and Carlo Barbieri died inside a cave that didn't care who they were. And in that darkness, their story became a warning.